Counting down in five, four, three, two, one. Ryan Park, welcome to Cam Talks.
Thank you for having me. It's amazing to be on here, Cam, talking to you. And also, yeah, really great to be talking about sunrise as well.
Amazing. Ryan, I have some weird fireworks stuff going on behind me. I think when I said amazing, Zoom decided that it would give me some little filter to try and increase my excitement. And you as well. Oh my God, when you give a thumbs up on Zoom, it creates this amazing New Year firework display behind you. Thank you, Zoom, for improving communication. What would we ever do without this incredible way of communicating? Which, by the way, was the very first way me and you ever communicated. Because Ryan, I mean, before we dive into, what you're currently doing today, I want to take you back to the very first time that we ever met, because actually I was looking for a business partner, and I said to one of our mutual friends, I need the best salesperson you know. And that led me to you, which was amazing, because the moment we first connected, we realized we had so many mutual interests and things in common, of which, yeah, mental health was just one of them. So give us your introduction for the audience who don't know you, and then we'll sort of roll with it.
Oh, lovely. And I remember that conversation really well. I was sat in a car park in like a carpet shop because we had about half an hour scheduled. And I think we were on the phone in the end for like an hour and a half. So remember that really well, Cam. My name is Ryan Park. I have an organization called the Men's Coach. And what I do is I share the science of male mental health through talks, through workshops, and through coaching programs so that you don't have to lose the men that you care about to suicide.
Dude, and isn't that such a relevant topic today? But when I first met you, this isn't what you're doing. And the reason why you referred to me as the best sales person in the world was because you were literally one of the best salespeople in the world. Like, you went from having a corporate job, all, and then years later, becoming a men's sort of mental health coach. How did you transition from, how did you transition, Ryan? Was it an internal thing, or did you always know? How did you go from, being a sales trainer to going into the world of mental health? Surely you're getting paid way more money in sales than you are today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, yeah, thanks for reminding me. No, it's all good. So, yeah, the main thing really is something happened that just shook my understanding of how the world works, which was June 2019. I was running a business. I was a sales director for a finance company that I had founded, had a nice team, things were going well. I had money in the bank, nice car, all those good things. And then I bumped into a lady who I hadn't seen in years. I was really excited to hear the latest about her son, because her son, Brad, he was taller than me, more muscular, better looking. He had a great job, fast car, nice house, and he was a dad with a loving wife and two kids. And I like to think that I was on the same trajectory as Brad, but I was just a couple of years behind because of the age difference. I was going to catch him, I was determined. And then his mum, Jenny, said to me, "Oh my God, you're asking me how Brad is. You don't know. Brad's killed himself." And that really took me back for two main reasons. Reason number one is, I don't know about you, Cam, but I'd always believed that when people are successful, they would be happy. That was a belief that I had at the time. Brad was easily the most successful person I knew. And reason number two is, up until that point in my life, I had always believed that the reason why men have higher rates of suicide than women do is because men don't talk. I'd always heard that. And yet Brad was the most open and articulate man that I knew. In fact, I found out after he died that 2 years before Brad's death, he went to the doctor and said, "Please help. I think I'm depressed. I know I'm having thoughts about suicide." His doctor did what doctors are supposed to do. Brad was referred to talking therapy and prescribed antidepressants. He attended talking therapy, took antidepressants, and 2 months before he died, Brad's mum, Jenny, who worked in mental health, said, "Brad, call me every night. Tell me how you feel. You've got to get these feelings off your chest." Now, I'm not for a minute suggesting these things didn't help Brad. I'm sure they did. But what really struck me at the time was, here was a man who had done all the things that we tell men in crisis to do, and yet he still wasn't here anymore. So that really shook what my core beliefs were at the time about mental health, and particularly about male mental health. Brad's mum, Jenny, said, "Ryan, you should actually learn about this, because every 5 hours, 4 people die from suicide in the UK and Ireland. 3 of them are going to be men. And in fact, she also let me know that more men aged 45 to 49 die from suicide every year in the UK and Ireland than women and girls of all ages combined. Now, that's not to say anything other than to give you an idea of the scale of the challenge. It's not me saying, oh, male mental health is more important or anything like that. Not at all. And I took what Jenny said really seriously. There and then I decided to set aside one day every week from June 2019 until the end of the year to learn everything that I could about male mental health. I had no idea where to start because, my experience was in businesses, it was in sales, and I had no medical and no mental health background. So I decided to start the same way that I start everything, which is accept that I know nothing. That's the most important thing. Have to be prepared to unlearn everything I've learned. So I accepted that I knew nothing. I decided to start just by asking big questions and reading scientific studies. But I was not ready for where it would take me. Do you want to hear some of the things that I found out really quickly?
I do, absolutely, please.
So the very, very first day of just reading through scientific studies, the best evidence I could find, I was just stopped in my tracks because I read this study and it happened to mention there is one day every year where heart attacks in men jump up potentially by as much as 30%. And on the same day of the year, heart attacks in women go down significantly, maybe by as much as 30%. So one day every year, heart attacks in men jump up significantly, but heart attacks in women on the same day go down. Can you guess what day that is, Cam?
Oh, something to do with the tax year, probably.
A good guess. I suppose it depends what your tax bill is, right? It's not actually. That's a really, really good guess. Did you want one or two guesses more?
Oh, let me think. Christmas Day.
That's a brilliant guess. So on Christmas Day, heart attacks do jump up in men. It's the most likely day that people in the UK will have a heart attack. However, on that day, yes, heart attacks jump up in men, but they also jump up in women. We want up in men, down in women.
Ooh, can't think. Birthdays?
Nice guess, not birthdays. Would you like to know?
I'd love to know.
Okay, so this day every year where heart attacks jump up in men, potentially by as much as 30%, and go down in women, is the Monday after the clocks jump forward in March.
Wow. So what, they're tired?
That's what I wondered. So when the clocks jump forward in March, we should, in theory, go to bed an hour early because we're going to lose an hour's sleep. But have you ever done that? I never have.
Never, never.
Same here. So what we have when the clocks change is a massive experiment where loads and loads of people lose an hour of sleep or gain an hour of sleep when they change the other way. So here's what happens when daylight savings begins and we lose an hour's sleep. What happens in your body depends upon whether you're biologically male or biologically female. In a male body, losing that 1 hour of sleep lowers a man's testosterone for days. And in a man's body, as testosterone goes down, his chances of having a heart attack go up. And as soon as I learned this, I remember thinking, that's really weird. Because I was 29 at the time. And I remember thinking, my whole life, I've never heard anything positive about testosterone. In fact, when I was a kid and there was a fight in my local pub, my parents' friends used to say, it's no wonder they ended up fighting. The testosterone in the room was sky high. So I wondered, how can a hormone that causes fights in pubs protect men from having a heart attack? Like, I need to look into that, right? The following week comes around, and oh, are you still with me, Cam? Testing, testing. Yep, still with me?
I'm still with you. Yeah, exactly. Testosterone is a dirty word, my friend. I mean, it's often misunderstood, really. I mean, I don't really know what testosterone is, but I mean, can you tell me, like, yeah, what the hell is testosterone?
Yep, really good question. So testosterone is a hormone that everybody has in their bodies. It's some,
And women?
yep, women have it as well. Men have between 5 and 65 times more testosterone in their bodies,
Wow.
depending on lots of different factors. And it really is, it's the hormone that makes you look like and think like and act like and, be physiologically male. And every single process in your body is controlled by either hormones, which are chemical messengers in your blood, or neurotransmitters, which is chemical message in your brain. They control every single process in your body. So if you want to understand what your body's doing or what your brain is doing, then we need to look at hormones and we need to look at neurotransmitters. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. So why is it that men produce more testosterone than women?
Um, that's kind of why does nature make males and females different question. It's evolution. There's specialization in nature between male and female animals. They'll sort of have different areas of excellence. There'll be lots of crossover, but there'll be some areas of excellence where males are optimized for one task and females are optimized for another task. It's kind of the same as why do women have more estrogen? Because it prepares their bodies for things that they can do that biological males can't do.
So evolutionary speaking, the testosterone was very useful for us when we were cavemen, having to fight off attacks and be very energetic very quickly. Is that kind of on the right path?
Oh, so I see what you're getting at here. So it's thought, there's a train of thought that thinks that the reason why testosterone exists in the first place is because its main job back in the day was to suppress your immune system enough for sperm to be allowed to live.
Interesting.
So inside a male body, inside their testicles, their balls, they're going to make hundreds of millions sperm a day, depending on like the creature, right? But we're mammals, and mammals are pretty similar in this regard. So a sperm is a cell that doesn't have your DNA. It's a foreign cell inside your body, and it's whipping around like a mad thing on a mission. So your body naturally, your immune system would just attack that. It's a foreign body. So it may be because testosterone has a slight suppressing action on immune systems, it may be that the original job of testosterone was to prevent immune systems from attacking sperm. And then over time, it started to get more and more roles and to, cause more and more characteristics. Because these hormones probably all have really simple starts. And then over time, evolution's like, well, whatever works, let's do that more.
Hmm. And so what makes a man lose testosterone? What depletes a man's body of testosterone?
Yeah, so this is a wildly important question, right? Because at first I wondered, why does testosterone protect a man's heart? And then I found out that not only does testosterone protect a man's heart, it also protects his mental health. And here's some of the things that I found out very quickly. So on average, men who are depressed have around 33% less testosterone than men the same age who are not depressed.
Mhm.
The only study of its kind, which looked at, unfortunately, what it looked at was people's bodies arriving at a morgue after they died. But here's what it found. On average, men who die from suicide have very low levels of testosterone. They have roughly 38% less testosterone than the median man their own age. And when I learned that, I was really interested because in the Western world, including the UK, the single biggest killer of men under the age of 50 is suicide. Suicide in men and depression in men are both linked to having a low level of testosterone. The biggest killer of men over the age of 50 is heart disease. So heart disease, heart attack, heart failure, and high blood pressure in men are all associated with having a low level of testosterone. And the next biggest killer of men after heart disease is cancer. The most likely cancer that a man will be diagnosed with is prostate cancer. And the single biggest indicator that a man will develop prostate cancer is having low testosterone.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so I started out at the beginning of this process thinking that like testosterone's bad and men just need to talk. And pretty quickly, I could see testosterone isn't bad, it's vital. If you've ever heard that testosterone makes men aggressive or makes boys aggressive, it's actually been disproven decades ago. Just the PR for testosterone hasn't caught up with the truth. And
Why
then,
is that though? Why are we hating on testosterone? Is it the relics of an old agenda?
yeah, it's really just sometimes opinions are formed on evidence, and sometimes they're formed based on assumption. There
Hmm.
was in the early days an assumption that testosterone would make men aggressive. It was almost never tested. It was just quoted by other people who did studies on testosterone. And then there's another issue as well, which is testosterone has a calming effect on men. When you inject testosterone, if you do it without medical supervision or if you inject too much, it blocks a man's body's ability to create testosterone. So now, under stressful circumstances where your body would normally produce more testosterone to keep you calm, it doesn't do that anymore. So early studies found that when men inject testosterone, they're more aggressive. But so on the face of it, you'd think, well, therefore testosterone makes men aggressive. But no, testosterone has a calming effect. What it does, one of the reasons for this is it actually binds to a part of our brain. And when things bind to that certain part of our brain, it calms us down. That's why injecting too much testosterone without medical supervision can make men aggressive, because it blocks production of testosterone, which means that when you need more testosterone, you can't have it because your body doesn't make it anymore.
Wow. The interesting thing about this obviously is that social media is rife with evolutions of new medical procedures and all sorts of things. Funny enough, Facebook actually sort of really dropped their advertising sort of standards a few years ago to the point where medical surgeries and magic pills are sort of now a standard amongst the online advertising world. One of which is testosterone, hormone replacement therapies, and selling me testosterone. How effective is that for a man who has low testosterone? Is there any way that you should be injecting it or should be getting taking pills or something, or is there any natural ways that we can boost this?
So really nice question. So what we want to do is we want to look at what are the natural key ingredients for a healthy level of testosterone. So we look at that, and then we can look at if you couldn't do that, or who might that not work for. So I'd always believed my whole life that the single biggest factor when it comes to testosterone levels is your age. So I thought there's nothing I can do about it because I can't change my age, right? But based on what I know now, I can tell you age is not a big factor when it comes to testosterone levels. It is when you're going through puberty, like you change so fast, you obviously need an enormous dose of hormones to do that. So actually, boys going through puberty have higher levels of testosterone than men, which is interesting to know. But obviously, if we had that, we would continue to, get hair in new areas and stuff like that. So the single biggest factor when it comes to testosterone production in men is sleep. Testosterone is made when we sleep. So if you don't prioritize sleeping or you don't get the right amount of sleep, then you're not going to be able to make a healthy level of testosterone. From what I've seen, and I don't ever pretend to be a sleep expert. In fact, sleep experts don't agree on this. But from what I've seen, the optimum amount of sleep for a man when it comes to hormonal health is 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. If people work shift work, it doesn't seem to matter whether that sleep is obtained during the day or during the night. That has a very, very small difference. But for hormonal health, it's about that uninterrupted time. So sleep's the biggest factor. The next is food. It's what we eat. Now, in the West, if we follow all the dietary guidelines that are around in the UK, the US, Canada, the EU, you will restrict fat in your diet. You restrict it to about sort of 70 grams a day. You'll restrict saturated fat in your diet to about 20 grams a day. This is if you follow the guidelines that are written on all our food. And most of your energy will come from carbohydrate. When you eat carbohydrate, your body does not want to get energy from carbohydrate. So your body releases a hormone called insulin to instruct your cells. I know you don't want to take in that glucose from the sugar and the carbs, but you're going to have to. Otherwise, the sugar in Cam's blood is going to eat us alive. So you've got to take in that sugar. When your body releases insulin, Insulin lowers testosterone levels. So if you're on a quote healthy, balanced Western diet, your diet is going to lower your testosterone levels. And the older you get, the lower your testosterone levels are going to be until you change your diet and you follow what the evidence says, which is a low carbohydrate, high fat diet. So food's the second big factor. The third factor after that is exercise. And it's so useful for us to know because there's a term which I didn't know about until a couple of years ago. It's called a meta-analysis. It's a study of studies. And meta-analyses are really good because it means that you get understanding and knowledge from massive pools of data. And there was a meta-analysis last year, and it looked at nearly 100 studies incorporating basically 130,000 people, and it found that exercise is 1.5 times more effective than antidepressants and 1.5 times more effective than talking therapies when it comes to dealing with depression, stress, and anxiety. And how many people are told that when they're dealing with depression or stress or anxiety?
Well, they're not, are they? It's let's give you some pills for that and see you again in 2 to 3 weeks. The so sleep, food, exercise, any other factors around testosterone I need to know?
Yeah, you got three other biggies. The next one, so number 4 in that hierarchy that you got, is vitamin D. So
Like the
men,
sun.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Wow.
It's the steroid hormone that it's called a vitamin, but it is a steroid hormone. It's one that we make from being in the sun. So we're animals, so we make vitamin D3. Some of us are animals more than others, but no comment. But we make vitamin D3 from being in the sun. Plants make D2, but D3 is the one that we need. That's the one that our body uses. Now, men who have low levels of vitamin D have very low levels of testosterone because vitamin D is required for the manufacturing process of testosterone. And low levels of vitamin D are associated with, mental health challenges. What's interesting to know is that during the summer, even in the UK, all you need is about 10 minutes of midday summer sun for a healthy level of vitamin D. But during the winter, because we wrap up more, who goes out in their, no one goes out in their shorts in the winter unless you're a postman. So during the winter months, we would actually need 2 hours of midday sun for a healthy level of vitamin D. And most people can't get that because we're working, we're in an office, we've got things to do. So actually our government and most other governments around Europe recommend that adults supplement vitamin D through the winter months until the clocks change back in March. So we've got sleep, we've got food, we've got exercise, we've got vitamin D. Then the next one is alcohol. Alcohol significantly lowers testosterone in men. It happens very quickly. It lasts for quite a long time. In fact, one 2018 study found that each single alcoholic drink lowers a man's testosterone by the equivalent of 6 years of aging.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how important it is that men limit or are aware of their testosterone, their alcohol. I'm not saying don't drink. I personally don't drink, but I completely get it's a life choice, and you can have a lot of fun from drinking. I always did, but it's also important for people to know about this relationship because alcohol lowers testosterone in men. Men with low testosterone are depressed, and what do depressed men like to do? Drink alcohol, right?
So it's a revolving door.
And then the last big factor that we need to know about is actually competition. It's winning and losing. This really drives testosterone levels in men. And
Wow. So that's a psychological thing.
I mean, you can call it psychological, but when you win or when you lose, your hormones react very, very quickly if you're male. And I got some examples of that if you want to know like a bit more detail.
Please, yeah. I mean,
So,
I know the feeling is shit, when you mess up or when someone
yeah,
else comes in and beats you or you don't get the girl you want. There's something really physical about that feeling.
100%. And so far, what we've done is we've looked at how a healthy level of testosterone comes from lifestyle, the food that we eat, whether we're in the sun or not, whether we're working out, whether we're sleeping. You know, when I saw that list of key ingredients for a healthy level of testosterone, I remember thinking, oh, crap. Because I knew Brad, and I know that, yeah, he did all the things that we tell men to do when they're in crisis. He went to the doctors, he took antidepressants, he attended talking therapy, he called his mom every night and told her how he felt. But nobody that Brad spoke to knew enough about male mental health to realize that Brad was spending all of his time at work. And I knew him well enough to know that sleep, homemade food, exercise, sunshine, sobriety, they just wouldn't have been on his list of priorities. And I realized at the time they weren't on mine, and that actually trying to be a man is something that kills a lot of men. So we've got these big lifestyle factors, but that's not enough to explain testosterone in men and testosterone levels. Basically, all those lifestyle factors, that kind of contributes to what I would call baseline testosterone, which is the amount of testosterone you have most of the time.
But you haven't mentioned anything about sex in there. So how is sex good or bad for men's testosterone? Is that winning?
Yeah, so I'll explain the winning thing and then we'll look at the sex thing.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So here's the winning thing, right? Which is testosterone fluctuates wildly based on competition. Lots of what we know about this in the early days came from studying monkeys. So I'll start with the monkey thing because then we can sort of see how it translates. One analysis of monkeys found that just like men, male monkeys have a baseline level of testosterone. But as soon as there's an element of competition, say two male monkeys saw one delicious meal and it's only big enough for one of them, now there's an air of competition. The testosterone levels in both monkeys will jump up by around 4 times baseline. So massive increase in testosterone because of this competition. What happens next depends on the outcome. Let's say one monkey is a little bit braver than the other or more experienced or bigger, and he flashes his teeth. And the other monkey thinks, screw that, it's not worth it, and runs away. Now there's a winner. Testosterone levels in the monkey who won are going to increase by a further 20%. So he's now about roughly 5 times baseline. So he's feeling very good, very, very good. However, testosterone levels in the monkey who lost the confrontation are going to come crashing down. And one source found that they come crashing down by around 90%. So,
Wow.
so they're now lower than baseline. And what does that monkey with that low testosterone do? He will separate himself from the group. He won't come back to socialize or even to eat until his testosterone levels return to normal. He is, in effect, a depressed monkey.
Wow. Oh my God.
So that's monkeys and competition affecting testosterone and how they behave. And when scientists learned that, they wondered, well, if that's how competition affects testosterone in monkeys, how does it affect testosterone in men? So there's lots of studies on this, but a couple of useful ones. There was a study of tennis playing men going into a knockout tennis tournament. And what it found is before the game, baseline levels of testosterone, soon as the games began, elevated levels of testosterone in all the players. But the scientists, they didn't attend the games, they weren't given the score. They could tell with 100% accuracy which man had won and which man had lost from testosterone levels taken moments after the end of the game. Because the man who won, his testosterone had jumped up, just like the monkey who won. And the man who lost, his testosterone had come crashing down, just like the monkey who lost. And this is when scientists realize, hold on a minute, testosterone is not associated with aggression. Have you ever seen that stereotypical image of a male tennis player smashing his racket in frustration?
Of
At,
course.
at the point where he's smashing his racket, was he winning or losing?
Losing.
Yeah, absolutely, which is associated with low testosterone. And this is when scientists realize testosterone is not associated with aggression in men. Low testosterone is associated with aggression in men. No man wins the point, wins the match, and then as his testosterone levels go up, smashes his racket in frustration. That doesn't happen, does it?
Never.
Here's another amazing thing that came from these kind of studies, because sports are a bit different to a monkey fight. One of the ways they're different is they're played in sets. And what the scientists found from the tennis study I mentioned and from others is that when a man wins the first set, if he starts and he's happy with his performance, his testosterone increases. This has an impact on his mood. His mood will improve, and his performance will improve. And it was found that getting off to a good start in tennis predicts the winner 60% of the time. Now, that's really relevant because that does not happen in female sports, but it happens all the time in male sports. It's been well studied. It's called the winner effect. And what the winner effect shows us is when men are happy with their performance, their testosterone levels increase, their mood improves, and next time they do the same task, their performance improves. When men are unhappy with their performance, their testosterone levels decrease, their mood gets worse, they get grumpier, and next time they do the same task, they perform worse. So whether we believe we're performing well is massively important for our mood, our performance, and our mental health.
Insane, man. Insane.
So then in my coaching practice, the way that we use this is when I work a lot to help men set small, consistent daily and weekly goals. And with the daily goals, what I always say is set the smallest goal you possibly can. Like sometimes I work with guys and their goal for the first day is just to make themselves a cup of tea. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Achieve it before 8:30 in the morning, knock it out of the park. If we set consistent small goals for ourselves and smash them, what I have seen is within 4 or 5 days, guys are setting really impressive goals and they're achieving them. If you start on day one with a massive goal, I am going to take a 2-hour lunch break, or I'm going to call my friend and get hold of my friend and go for lunch with my friend, all these things that are too big, too out of your control. If you're smashing your goals, your body gets the message that you are winning. But conversely, if you're setting goals and not achieving them, what's that doing to our hormones and what's that doing to our mental health? And a problem I see all the time with men is they set goals that they can't achieve, and then their mental health worsens. In general, I'd say, and I know this is generalizing, but it's generalizing less than a one-size-fits-all approach. But in general, what I've learned over the last 5 years, Cam, is that female mental health, positive female mental health, is all about feeling connected. It's about feeling close to other people and that you matter to them. Positive male mental health is about feeling capable. And the larger the gap between who you are and who you want to be, the worse your mental health if you're male.
And obviously this is strange because I think we've come out of the time now where we're trying to treat men and women exactly the same. And I think now because we've had these conversations in society and there has become this polarization of particularly subcultures, some men are labeled toxic, some women are labeled crazy Karens or whatever. And I think we've had this experience now that the world isn't as black and white as we would have once thought. So I do think that we're ready to have that conversation about how men and women differ. But it's really interesting. So look, I mean, testosterone is not something that I wanted to just focus on in this chat. And yet it's really such a fundamental thing. I'm operating on 4 hours of sleep right now. I ate crap food yesterday. I haven't exercised in a while, and I've been sat here in my little makeshift studio getting no vitamin D. I had a glass of wine yesterday, and I haven't really considered myself as a winner in recent times. And I'm tired. It's like on all angles. I don't feel like I want to go out and and kill that bear. I don't. I'm living at the moment with my parents in the Channel Islands, with the most amazing nature around me, with the sea and and every reason to go out and see the world. But it's interesting how quickly you can fall and sort of tumble by just sort of ignoring those fundamental practices. Like I know that we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours and hours, but I am conscious of the time because one of the most amazing things about you, Ryan, is that you don't just say what you think. You have researched this stuff, you've studied this stuff, and recently when you've come online and you've started to tell the world about this sort of stuff, you've had a lot of pushback from people, and I've seen the way that you deal with people online. You're very respectful, you're very open, you're very honest. but you back up every single thing you say with scientific studies, which is crazy because, you know, you can't fight a man who comes at it with scientific studies, right? You know, like you have nothing to, me and you could argue for hours, but the moment you put the facts in front of me, I'm like, oh, cheers, mate. We've just taken away that squabble. Do you find now, because you're now working in a world, to give the audience a bit of an overview, and I think to kind of jump through this a bit, I was one of Ryan's early men's coaching clients. I worked with you for on many occasions, trying to help myself be better, both through sort of weekly calls and also through the Monday morning men's club, which is more of a group sort of, I don't want to call it group therapy, but like group accountability. And the
Yep, no.
way that I normally talk about Ryan, I talk about you in positive ways always. But I've been to therapy. I've dug up. My mum's even got me onto a séance to help me look for the future. But Ryan Park, you as my coach, you've helped me look at what's happening today and tomorrow, and help me sort of achieve those goals. And you do it through an amazing framework called Alpha. Now, personally, like I write down my alpha goals every day. I talk to my friends about alpha all the time. I know that you've got a book coming out about this in the future, so I don't want to spill the beans in case this is something you want to talk about further. But you've given me and many of my friends a framework to operate in, that includes, understanding of testosterone, understanding of all these other areas in life. Why is it you had to write this? Why did you have to sort of come in and not just look at the one side of things? Why did you have to take a giant step back and look at men as a whole and then create the solution and a framework around how men can follow? Because I've read many self-help books in my life, probably all of the biggest ones, and I've never found a framework like Alpha, and I've never had a coach like you. So why are you doing this, Ryan? I mean, I thought you're a salesman.
I mean, so one reason why I'm doing this is because every now and again people say what you just said, Cam, which is something along the lines of this was really useful. And the main thing is I never intended to sell this or to do it at scale. What happened was after probably the first 6 months of spending those Sundays learning about my mental health, going through the evidence, I realized I wasn't learning anything new. All the new studies I was reading, I was up to a couple of hundred studies at that point that I digested and tried to understand in detail. And all the studies were leaning back to this realization, really, that there are 5 dimensions to male mental health. They are skills. The better we are at these skills, the better our mental health will be. And we need to balance them. And those 5 skills are goal setting, lifestyle. I tend to use the term lifestyle rather than well-being because it's been found in many studies that men don't understand what well-being is. It's too general a concept. It's not specific enough. It's a buzzword, basically. So we have goal setting, we have lifestyle, we have security. Being able to provide security and identify what you need to do for security is a skill. We have motivation, and we have finding life purpose. And I think that honestly, if anyone started out from the perspective of thinking, I know nothing, I'm just going to ask questions and read the evidence, I think anyone would end up at the same position. So I ended up with these 5 things. I created a framework to help me remember what they were, which you mentioned is now called the Alpha Framework. And what happened was I just tested it in my own life, became much happier and much healthier, started working with other guys. You were one of the ones that I spoke to right back in the early days. And then every time I had this blatant disregard for the framework, I treated it not as my baby or anything like that. I treated it as something that might be broken, we should be suspicious of, and we should test it thoroughly. And the more I tested it, the more I found that some things were not good about it and needed to be changed. And then over time, I could break it less and less, and more people were saying, "Oh, this really works." So yeah, we've ended up with this evidence-based framework, and it's based on. It sounds ridiculous to say it now, Cam, but it's based on as of today, 910 sources. And everything I've learned from hundreds of coaching calls with men. And sometimes when I'm in workshops, people have these moments where we're going through it and they just sit there looking out the window and they go, can I just say this explains a lot? And I'll hear responses like that from clinical people, from medical people. It's phenomenal. But I really believe if you just start from scratch and think, I don't know what I'm doing, let's just follow the evidence. When it comes to male mental health, I think anyone would end up with the same 5 dimensions. They might call it different things. They might do a much better job than I have. Like, that's almost guaranteed. But my biggest advantage in all this, actually, I was speaking a little while ago. It was at a police station, at a police headquarters. And afterwards, I came and I sat down, and there was one of the only ladies in the room. She was amazing. She was a hostage negotiator. How cool is that? And I always want my talks to be inclusive and engaging for everyone. So I leaned over and I was like, what did you think? And she sat there in silence for a minute and she said, I think this is quite clever because what you've done is you've got a talk on self-care, on well-being, on looking after yourself, but it's science-backed and explains why we need to do things. And you use all these words that appeal to men because they're words that you got from men. And she said, yeah, I think it's really clever. And she said, you've got an advantage that you don't realize you've got, which is you've only looked at the evidence. You don't know the things that people are taught when they go and learn about mental health, when they go and learn about, medical stuff. There's loads of examples of this, Cam. There's like, why are studies finding that if you follow the advice from the Canadian Diabetes Association, if you follow that advice, you don't end up ever getting off your medication, while there are diets out there that prevent you needing diabetes medication in 18 months' time if you follow them. Like, why? And the answer is there's a lot of dogma. There's a lot of conventional wisdoms out there that aren't right. They're based on assumptions and they're not tested. And I think, yeah, that's how I ended up in this situation, Cam. I just followed the evidence. And now it's getting to a stage where I can't believe the organizations I'm working with. I'm working with NHS trusts. I'm working with charities that lots of people in the country would have heard of. They'll be like, oh, yeah, I know about that charity. And companies that have worldwide reach. And we're now rolling out corporate programs that use that framework. And the guys are checking in every Monday, just like me and you used to, during the Monday morning men's club. They're using the Alpha framework just like we did together. They're using these workbooks that have been printed. And yeah, it's just phenomenal, mate. I probably could sell other things, but I've never felt so satisfied and happy with my life because, like, finally, I've sold things I believe in. Absolutely. I've done some amazing jobs and been proud of the products I've sold. But to sell something that you've built that you see as helping people is, yeah, like, I'm really happy at the moment. I don't want to change anything.
This direction. You could have very easily just sat back in your nice swanky car and kept making more money. But you found a problem that needed a solution. And I think, the problem of mental health, and obviously I know that this isn't just applied to men, but you are a man and you have done all of the studies sort of around men. So I'm sure there'll be the female equivalent, as we know with your wife and your future child, if I may say, could be a woman. We don't know. I mean, maybe you do. But the point is, you may have the need to go into, the female science of it all one day. But the nice thing is that it all started with the story of Brad, and it all started with a story of confusion, and why did someone who was seemingly the fittest, the strongest, and the most handsome and the most successful person, why did they take their own life? And we see that a lot in society. So I'm very grateful that you decided to go down the scientific route and not through your own dogma, which I think we all have. The superpower that I now have that you gave to me is an understanding of why I feel the way I feel. It's an understanding of why I feel depressed or why I feel, and I can now, in 5 minutes of chatting to someone, I can audit their life without them even knowing about it. You know, I can ask them all the questions that guide me to a reasonable understanding about where they're lacking. And I think that's really interesting. I come from like the startup world, you know, where you're expected to work 24 hours a day. You know, there is no sleep. It's the hustle, hustle, hustle. You know, and I look at that now and I think, wow, we were just killing ourselves for, you know, for a business that would never succeeded because chances of startups even succeeding is already very slim, and yet we were convinced by this world of gurus, you know, these self-help gurus who are all about hustle, hustle, hustle. And these books, when you read about the gurus, they don't come at it with science, right? They come at it with stories. They come at it with success stories, and they talk about how this person did this and they were so successful at it. But everything you've come at me and the other group of lads with is all just science. And sometimes I'm like, Ryan, would you just shut up and tell me a good story? Because I'm just like, you know, every single thing that you've done is kind of come through science, and I thank you for it. I really do. I can only be one of your followers, and I remember explaining about this one day because, you know, I'm not a religious man, but Jesus was one person, and then he had a bunch of followers who might have just changed the story a little bit, or, you know, just kind of and that's how I feel like we're doing it now, because, you know, most of my friends have worked with you, and most of my friends have told me the same things that I've told, you know, other people, and so we're starting to develop this network of people who are sort of following a more scientific approach to men's mental health. And that's all because of you, Ryan. So thank you very much.
Thank you for helping as much as you have. And you know, the main thing I'd say is that it absolutely has to happen. So there's an organization called the BACP, the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, and they did an engagement study in 2022. And what they found at the time is that 79% of men in the UK agree it's more acceptable to talk about mental health than it was just 5 years ago. That's good news. That's a step in the right direction. The same survey found that 68% of men agree there's now less stigma associated with mental health than there was just 5 years ago. Another step in the right direction. The same survey found that between 2010 and 2022, men in the UK became 50% more likely to have attended talking therapy in the last year. Another massive step in the right direction. Yet in the same time that all these things have gone in the right direction, here's the statistic that I care about. Because in the same time that most men agree, yeah, it's more acceptable to talk, most men agree there's less stigma, and men have made the extraordinary effort to become 50% more likely to have attended talking therapy, men in the UK have also become 11% more likely to die from suicide. Now,
So it's not getting better.
it's not, it's getting worse. And I'm not suggesting these things aren't helping, but what I've seen, and I'm kind of condensing here to the point where I might be, you know, butchering the information that I've learned, but what I've seen is that yes, talking is vital for everyone, but for men, it is not the sole solution. It's just the first step. But once men are talking about their mental health, the next thing is they need to know what they should be talking about. Specifically, we know it's goal setting, it's lifestyle, it's security, it's motivation, it's finding life purpose. They're the things that men need to be talking about. And then when they find their problems, then the third step is they need to actually make changes in their life to address those problems. So just talking on its own is vital, but it is not the solution for male mental health. It's not going to address the high rates of male suicide. And in fact, there's an amazing study on this that came out 12 years ago by the Samaritans. And in that, the Samaritans said that talking therapy doesn't actually address the key factors associated with suicide in men. That came out 12 years ago. Who's taken notice? That was a warning 12 years ago. And still, when I read, you know, prospectuses from mental health organizations, they'll often say the same thing. We've just got to start the conversation, tackle the stigma. And when it comes to men's mental health, they'll often say, we've got to refer men to talking therapy. But the evidence says that is not the solution, and we need to take a more evidence-based approach. Otherwise, we're gonna lose more dads, more friends, more brothers, more husbands, more sons, unless we're prepared to take an evidence-based approach.
Yeah, and it's really sad because there's also this generational divide as well, and this stigma that parents possibly have a lot less understanding than the younger generation around mental health, and certainly aligning with this whole woke agenda type thing. I find that older generations tend to just categorize all of the problems of today into this kind of woke category. Oh, mental health, and you get really frustrated because you're like, well, your generation was so unaware that you didn't even consider that you could find out some facts before having an opinion. Whereas we're in this situation where, and now with AI as well, geez, I mean, we're like, we have no opinion without having facts. And that can make it very, very difficult, particularly when trying to live amongst family members, live amongst people from different types of mindsets. But what I do find that the particular people that have sort of cottoned on to what we're talking about now and this kind of new scientific based approach is that once you find people who think like you begin to get stronger. I mean, is there a pack mentality? Is there a group mentality that you've seen the benefit of with the number of clients that you've brought together? I know you do individual coaching sessions, but you also have every Monday morning a group session with a group of lads who are all feeling strength from each other.
Yeah, it's a really nice question. I think something that's happened over the last probably 12 months for me is I've definitely found another tribe as well. So there was the tribe that like you were an amazing part of, Cam, which is like we were guys helping each other, sharing information. And then that was phenomenal. That was evenings and weekends. And now from 9 until 5 every day, there's another tribe as well, which is like, working with mental health practitioners, working with doctors. Most of the last coaching cohorts that I've run have all included a doctor, whether they're A&E doctor, GP doctors, they're using this stuff for CPD. They're learning stuff that isn't available to them elsewhere as CPD, which is scary in a way, but also really encouraging that they're so open to it. So yeah, what I've learned recently is that a while ago, I always used to be scared about talking about this stuff publicly, especially because I didn't want to say anything that might look like I was arguing that, oh, men and women are different, and therefore this means, men are more important or anything like that. It's obviously nothing like that. I believe that, yes, we're equal, but we're not the same. If we were both the same, then we wouldn't all be needed. It's the difference that makes us so valuable and so useful to one another and such brilliant supporters of one another. I think we need to appreciate that. And yeah, I think it's an answer to your question, but I've just been thrilled over the last 12 months, which is there's this new tribe that's joined the group, which is mental health practitioners, it's charities, and it's companies who they want this evidence-based approach because ultimately it's good for them. If it works, if it helps them understand things. I think lots of people have been wondering, why is the current approach not working? Why are more men going to talking therapy and more of them are dying from suicide? Why, when I talk to my son and I try and get him to express how he feels, why does he close up and not want to talk about it? I think that there's an amazing tribe out there that I've only recently connected with, and it's really inspiring. But they are people who want an evidence-based approach, and I'm learning from them, and they're learning from me, and the framework and the body of evidence is growing every single day, and it's being used by more and more companies and charities now. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. And if anyone's listening and they're thinking, oh God, if I speak up about this, like I might be chastised, I might be outcast, something like that. I don't mean about mental health. I just mean anything in general. Like if you start talking about something loudly that you believe in, so long as it's not harmful, so long as it's useful to people, yes, some people will not like what you're saying, but also you will find your tribe. Some people will go, oh, that thing you said was so useful to me. And so, yeah, we need to be open, we need to be honest, and we need to talk about what we're thinking, what we're feeling. I'm not saying, oh, that's the answer to everything. Obviously, I share evidence regularly that it's not the answer to everything. But if you do open up and make other people aware of what you believe in, you will find a tribe that wants to work with you on it.
I love it, man. My main takeaway for the audience who've been listening to this conversation is the idea of coaching. You know, like we all know about therapy. Therapy is looking back, and there's certainly a lot of qualifications out there that you can have to become a therapist, and there's really good and really bad therapists. Coaching is much more of a modern phenomenon and a more of a modern need, and it's very difficult to find a good coach. I've worked with many different business coaches and, spent thousands of pounds learning from them. And I have to say, I've never found that ever to be a waste of money. Any money I've ever spent on my own personal development is an investment in myself. And I'm very happy to say that, Ryan, you are the best coach I've ever worked with. And I every time I meet people who wouldn't even consider spending a penny on having someone else help them with their goals, I just feel so sorry for because it's really it's a journey, and this journey has been many years now of knowing the things that I'm doing that are making me weaker. I also know what to do to make him stronger. So thank you for empowering me, Ryan Park. I very much appreciate it, and thank you for chatting to me today.
So welcome. Thank you for inspiring me because you always inspire me. Thank you for always being such a great connector. And thank you so much for the work you're doing around sunrise and mental health.
We didn't even talk about that, but I think this is why our journeys are so aligned because, we both found a problem. We both have a way of dealing with that problem. Where can my audience find out more about you? How can they get in touch with you? If that's even a thing anymore because you're so busy.
Yeah, cool. Lovely question. So, as you know, my name is Ryan Park. I share the science of mental health through talks, through workshops, through coaching programs. And if any of what I've said has resonated with you, or if you want someone to come and dazzle your audience with stories, with science, with practical science-based strategies, you can connect with me at themenscoach.co.uk. Fill in the contact form. I will be in touch with you tomorrow.
There you go, guys. Ryan Park, thank you very much.
You can.